Good morning. It's always good to be here in Tacoma, especially at a Rotary meeting. You know, I have to tell you, Rotary has a special place in my heart. It's kind of a family affair. My wife, Amy Goings, much better half, those of you who know Amy, is the past president of the Tacoma South Rotary, and our 7-year-old son, Will, has been to a PETS training. I don't know what a PETS training is. Apparently it has nothing to do with animals, from what I understand. But most of all, what I enjoy about Rotary, I've been to a few club meetings before in my life, is that unlike Kiwanis, you don't sing "O Canada." And I had practiced just in case this was an "O Canada" club. So thank you for not singing "O Canada," because I still don't do it very well. Well, I appreciate it. You don't either, from what if happy birthday is any indication, you're right, you do not. So thank you very much for the introduction and for the opportunity to be here with you this morning. I want to talk a little bit about the SBA. From what I have found, most folks have heard of the Small Business Administration, but much more than that, there's some questions. And so I want to talk a little bit about the SBA with you this morning. Our role at the Small Business Administration is to help small businesses start, grow, and succeed. And as you probably all can understand, small businesses are incredibly important to our overall economy. In fact, today, about half of all working Americans work for a small business. And over the past 15 years, about 2/3 of all new net jobs have been in small business. So as small business goes, as does the overall economy. So I want to talk about a couple key things with you this morning. First, I want to talk to you a little bit about what the SBA does and what we've been doing to help entrepreneurs as we work together to turn the economy around. Second, a little bit about some recent proposals the President has made to continue and accelerate the recovery. And then finish up, if there's some time, Mr. President, for a few questions and answers, if that's okay. And I understand that we're being filmed, so I'm going to stand still. Normally I would walk around a little bit to make sure it's a little easier on the folks recording. So let's talk about what SBA is and does. Our commitment at SBA is to work arm in arm with entrepreneurs to grow the economy. And we do that by focusing on three key things, what we affectionately call the 3 C's at SBA. Capital, contracts, and counseling. So let's start with capital. No surprise to anybody in this room, especially those few bankers in the room, that access to capital is critical for a small business, especially in difficult economic times. Now, as challenging as the economy is still today, I think sometimes we forget about how bad things were, or frankly, how much worse things could have been. So think back for a moment to February of 2009. Our economy was in a free fall. We were losing about 700,000 jobs a month in the U.S. The credit market had completely frozen up, and many Americans were frankly worried about another Great Depression. Then the President signed the American Recovery Act and the Small Business Jobs Act into law, which gave SBA some new tools to help small businesses in that very difficult time. We received 2 important items that I want to discuss just briefly. The first was the ability to raise our government guarantee on our loans so that banks and credit unions would be more likely to lend in the worst credit environment since the Great Depression. The second tool that we received was the ability to waive or eliminate many of the fees on our loans. Those could have been normally $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 depending on the credit situation and the size of the loan. The thought being that if we were able to waive those fees, that was money that could be kept in the checking account of that local small business and reinvested in that small business. The good news is that 1-2 punch, if you will, worked. Across the U.S., after those laws were signed into law by the President, we saw our loan volumes at SBA nationwide go up by over 70%. Here in the state of Washington, we saw our loan volumes go up by over 90%. In fact, we've been able, in the state of Washington alone, to guarantee through the Recovery Act and the Small Business Jobs Act, nearly 3,000 loans worth over $1 billion to small businesses. So here in Pierce County, how does that translate? What's going on here in our own community? We've been able to guarantee nearly 300 loans worth over $100 million. And that ranges from a $35,000 loan to the Browns Point Dry Cleaners up in Northeast Tacoma to a $2 million loan to the Stadium Thriftway and everything in between. So ladies and gentlemen, here's the headline, if you will. Nationally, SBA received about $800 million through the Recovery Act, Stimulus Act. I think there's some more choice terms to refer to that legislation. But with that $800 million, we were able to leverage that into over 70,000 loans worth approximately $32 billion nationwide. Now, I realize I'm from the federal government, and I'm here to help. but I hope you'd agree with me that an $800 million investment into a $32 billion return isn't a bad return on investment, isn't a bad ROI. And that's money that's working right here in Tacoma and Pierce County, help businesses keep their doors open, keep their shelves stocked, and keep their employees paid. Now, as important as access to capital, I want to talk about the next C, access to government contracting. As you might imagine, the federal government buys a lot of stuff each year. In fact, Uncle Sam is the single largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. From paper clips to Boeing fueling tankers and everything in between, the federal government spends about $400 to $500 billion a year on goods and services. At the SBA, we're tasked with ensuring that at least 23%, or about $100 billion a year of those purchase orders, go to small businesses. You know, we really view this as a win-win. Small businesses receive those federal contracts that drive their revenues, and in exchange, the federal government gets to work with some of the most innovative, nimble, and responsive companies, often with a direct line to the CEO. So let me give you a couple examples of both how contracting and access to capital are helping small businesses here locally. With access to capital, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, how many of you have heard of Mud Bay Pet Foods? A couple of you? Okay. If you haven't, you will. They're a phenomenal company. When we started our relationship at SBA with Mud Bay, they had one store in Olympia, about a dozen employees, and under $1 million in annual revenues. Because of their hard work, a great business plan, and an even better marketing plan, and 4 SBA-backed loans, 2 from Columbia Bank and 2 from Key Bank, today, even in a challenging economic environment, Mud Bay, that may cost you $5 for the plug. Even with all of that, Mud Bay has been able to grow to over 20 stores, nearly 200 employees, and over $20 million in annual revenues. So again, a smart business plan, some tools from SBA, even in a challenging economy, a lot is still possible. In contracting, let me give you another example of how businesses here in Washington are leveraging some of these opportunities. The Hughes Group, owned by Patrick Hughes. Patrick's from Tacoma, his business is here in Tacoma. Patrick served his country during the Vietnam War and was wounded in service to his country. When he started his relationship with SBA back in 2004 through our training and certification program, he had annual revenues of about $300,000. Again, because of a great business plan and some tools and incentives from SBA, Patrick has been able to grow his company to over 100 employees with facilities across the nation, and is now a preferred contractor in logistics for the Department of Defense. So again, businesses like Mud Bay and the Hughes Group understand that by working together with SBA, we can really help open some additional doors. So talk a little bit about counseling, or contracting, a little bit about our other programs. I want to finish with our third C with counseling. You know, I always tell entrepreneurs that if you don't have a counselor, let me step back. If you don't have an SBA counselor, you should. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about your marriage at SBA. But if you don't have an SBA counselor, you should. Because our data shows that when entrepreneurs have a long-term counseling relationship with an SBA counselor, they're able to grow faster than the competition and expand into markets quicker than their competition. And we're really lucky here in the state of Washington alone to have over 30 centers where we offer an array of services, wraparound services, if you will. And here in Pierce County, we're very lucky to have a small business development center at Bates Technical College, a women's business center at Clover Park Technical College, and a SCORE counseling chapter here in Tacoma as well. The best part of these services is most of them are absolutely free. You simply have to call and make an appointment. So whether you've been in business for several years and have never translated your business plan from up here into writing, or you're someone who's thinking about starting a business, or you've always had an idea for exporting but have never known how to proceed, call one of our centers and they can help with all of those and many other issues. So I've talked a little bit now about what SBA is and does and what we've been doing to help small businesses through these challenging times. The next area that I want to talk about a little bit is some incentives to help small businesses going forward. You know, in addition to the loan programs, the counseling programs, and the contracting programs, The Small Business Jobs Act the President signed into law also includes some incentives for those businesses that were ready to expand even in this challenging economy. In fact, that legislation included over 8 additional tax credits and cuts to help small businesses, whether it be increasing the deductions, making cell phone deduction even easier, or eliminating all capital gains on key small business investments. There were some very important tools included in that legislation. Additionally, we've also been very supportive of our veterans, and the President has made this a hallmark of his administration. In fact, legislation he recently signed would allow those small businesses that decide to invest in our veterans who hire an unemployed vet a tax credit of up to $5,600. For those businesses who decide to hire an unemployed vet who was disabled in his service or her service to our country, a tax credit of up to $9,600. So if you have any questions about these incentives or any of the other programs I've discussed, you can go to sba.gov to learn more. Now I want to wrap up by talking about, we've talked about what we've done. The question is, what are we going to do more moving forward? The President has heard loud and clear that the tools and incentives that we offered have been appreciated, but that it's not enough. We need to quicken the recovery and accelerate the recovery that we've seen in 2011 through all of 2012. And so I want to finish by talking about the proposed American Jobs Act that the President discussed during his recent State of the Union. Our economy can't wait, and so we need to be doing everything we can to accelerate our recovery. And so the American Jobs Act would do 2 additional key things to help small businesses here in Tacoma and throughout the nation. The first thing it would do would allow expensing write-offs through 100% expensing write-offs through all of this year to really encourage businesses that have been thinking about a new investment, a new equipment, new machinery, to make that purchase this year, which has a ripple effect of helping the overall economy. And the second investment is in our infrastructure. It is estimated that approximately 15,000 Washingtonians would be able to go to work helping repair our schools, repair our bridges, expand our community and technical colleges with some of those key capital long-term investments. So again, if you have any questions about these incentives or other, SBA.gov is a great resource. I'll conclude just by saying a couple final words. Those of you who know me know that I'm an optimist, but also know that I'm a realist. I realize, as I think many of you do, that we did not get into the economic situation we're currently in overnight, and we're frankly not going to get out of it overnight either. But I'm also an optimist. I truly believe that with the incentives through the Recovery Act, the Small Business Jobs Act, and the proposed American Jobs Act, we can help you and others find success even in this tough economy with access to capital, access to government contracts, and access to relevant client contact counseling at our local offices. So thanks for the chance to talk a little bit about SBA this morning. And Mr. President, if there's still time, I'd be happy to take a question.